So grateful to be here and very happy to discuss these incredibly important and hard to talk about topics. He has an incredible backbone and staggering moral fiber. Howie is totally committed, completely ethical, totally admirable. No pressure if you can hear this, but honestly, Howie's a hero to me.
John, you joined us before, and it was a pretty incredible kind of testimony you gave, and you just devoted your life to advocacy for child trafficking, and even 9/11 truth. Maybe you could explain to us, in the last decade, what do you think the most challenging parts of coming alive on some of these issues have been?
Probably the hardest thing, and it continues, is just realizing that pretty much everything that I was told and taught since I was in grade school is probably not true.
Hello, good evening and welcome. It's 12:01 on the East Coast, and this is the Traffic Report with Howie and JT. Howie, how are you? Was that okay?
That was good. It was good. I like that one too. 12:01 on the East Coast. We'll keep working on. We're going to get our signature down. Opening. But if you want to change it around every now and again, I'm totally down with that.
Well, it's easy because I don't remember what I did 2 days ago.
Well, so. I know. I never write things down, but that's fine. Little ad lib.
I took a couple notes once back in high school. Something. I don't know, maybe. Yeah. What a day! What a day! We're just talking about it, and I can't. The thing I want to talk about most, I can't talk about because it's a law enforcement matter that I'm not the subject of any investigation or under investigation, but somebody else may be, and it's pretty ironic. And just as soon as I can talk to you about it, I certainly will. And it'll probably be a couple of shows on this show because it's very topical to what we do. So, and that's all I'll say. But
cool. Well, look forward to that.
Doing? Huh? How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. I was off the grid today, and so I'm a little bit out of it, but still have a lot to talk about with the documentaries. And but I did want to bring up this Lawrence O'Donnell from NBC tirade, blow up, whatever you want to call it.
Freak out.
Freak out. Yeah. When you think of someone who's unhinged, that guy is, when you look at that is quintessential unhinged. And, the fact that, he has a responsibility of, controlling narrative for Democrats. It's utterly disgusting, and that people would even, I could see through this guy, and I could see through him. CNN, always gets the lion's share of the attention of fake news, and but MSNBC, between Chris Hayes, Rachel Maddow, and Lawrence O'Donnell, that the 3 hours, it is just a never-ending, nonstop barrage, and lie after lie after lie. Regardless of how you feel about Donald Trump, they're just straight lying, and they've been lying, and they MSNBC was probably, because that's the station I watched. They were one of my primary motivations for starting to hold a Hillary for Prison sign, because literally.
Well, I want to thank them for that. Thank you, MSNBC, for that contribution.
Yeah, I couldn't take it anymore. But watching this guy blow up like that on TV, it's I would imagine if we could see some of these other people, off camera, it would be very eye-opening.
Or what goes on in their personal lives, for that matter. I remember another story, Surfer. This is actually an old story, but you remember old Richard Quest, the English guy that worked for CNN?
No.
Oh,
no.
This story.
Yeah.
You're gonna love this one. And it was a few years ago.
I'll Google him while you're telling it.
Yeah, it was a few years ago, but he was picked up in Central Park. with all right, let me see. How do I say this? I got to. All right, he had an odd rope tied around what did they say? Oddly tied rope that was around his neck, and the other end was tied to his genitals. Okay, he had.
Oh, I know this guy.
Yeah, of course, him. The rope guy. He had methamphetamine in his pocket and a dildo in his boot.
Wow.
And this is another one. And I saw that story today, and you were talking about O'Donnell, who's supposed to be Mr. Washington, insider, big asshole. But anyway, he fucking. I remember, and we were talking. We didn't have time to finish our conversation before the show came on. But what I had asked you about was Kennedy's speech about the press. And if you'd ever, there's a 5-minute version that's very moving, and I play that when I'm depressed, because it's short and it cheers me up. But when you go into the whole thing, I'm going to paraphrase it too, and I forgive me, JFK, for paraphrasing you. I just don't have it in front of me. But the gist of what he's saying is that these members of the press, go to your printing press. You are the keepers of the news, the keepers of freedom, and it was such a tribute to a free press and a free and independent press, and it was beautiful. And I'll have to play that clip on the show. I will get that, and we'll play it on another show. We should start the show with it. But how far have we fallen? you got Crazy Larry, at MSNBC, and old Richard with the dildo in his shoe. Really?
He's still on MSN. He's still on CNN.
Yeah. Oh well, Howie. He went to rehab.
Oh come on, man! I knew he looked familiar. I never heard that story before. And he's
that came through our Twitter line, and I was like, let me see. I think I'm
friggin' believable.
Yeah. Yeah.
The interesting thing about Lawrence O'Donnell, to me, is that he started his career as a writer. And, I'm just going off Wikipedia. From 77 to 88, he was a writer. And he published a book, Deadly Force, about wrongful death and police brutality. So, and that's right out of college. He went to Harvard. He went to some Catholic school, and he went on to Harvard. So he's a writer from 77 to 88, and then in 1980, so for 11 years he's a writer. And then in 1989, he becomes a legislative aide to Senator Daniel Moynihan.
Mm-hmm.
So it just seems kind of odd that you're a writer for 11 years and then you just get in, a legislative aide to, and he was a pretty big senator, right?
Yeah, Moynihan ran the basically the House. He was a big, or actually the Senate. He was a senator. But he
senator from, I guess he was senator from New York, right?
I believe so. Yeah, but
or Massachusetts. Let me see. I'll look it up.
Not sure, but yeah, he was definitely one of the big wigs.
New York.
There.
Yeah, New York.
Yeah.
Okay, and then then he leaves Moynihan, and then he was writing for The West Wing, and then he goes on. But I don't know how many people actually watch his show. I don't even know how popular it is, but there's something that just always struck me about the guy, and just watching him just freak out like that. You've seen you've seen the Bill O'Reilly back from the '80s, the Inside Edition.
Of course,
I mean, it was the same. It was the same thing, and I never, and like, come on, man, this is not normal behavior. This is not a bad day at work. I mean,
yeah. Oh yeah, but the beautiful part is somebody on that crew said, well, you know what? Fuck that guy. And they leaked that video right out. So
no, good for them. Good for them, and stuff like that needs to be exposed. But once again, I was some of the comments on Twitter. Oh, you're just having a bad day at work. Oh, we all lose it every now and again. Like you don't. Oh, so you bully, intimidate, and basically threaten your subordinates at work. Like, come on, man. No way. Something wrong with you. There's something wrong with you, and.
Well, and what was hilarious was that apparently they got their wires crossed in the booth, and some lady was talking about what they were doing after work,
like a Labor Day thing or something.
Yeah, it was. What is hilarious is he was being. I could see how that would be a little confusing, but Larry, you're reading off a teleprompter. It's like,
yeah.
Come on. How bad could it be? Are you that stupid? You can't read if there's. A little chatter in your ear. Come on.
That looks like the type of. He looked like the type of guy that he was. He just wanted to. He just wants to freak out. Bully.
The other part that was hilarious. That I thought was hilarious was, I guess, he does these little edits to his bullshit.
Uh-huh.
And apparently they didn't get the edit right. And he was raising hell about that. And it's like. Okay, so let me get this straight. You're all upset because they didn't make this minute edit on your whole show, which is bullshit.
Right.
God damn.
I ran into one of his. I looked on the show and he's not listed, but a guy on Twitter who said he's a producer, associate producer on the show. And he has like 240 something thousand followers, and I never understood quite how I got that many. I ran into him months ago, and he's the same type of thing, just impeach Trump, everything's Trump, Russia, but it's like I don't know how an associate producer on from The Last Word with Lawrence O'Donnell gets 240,000 Twitter followers, but what the hell do I know?
Yep. And it's, and somebody out there is saying, why are they talking about this? But it's just more corruption. We're going to talk tonight about some great documentaries that you can share with your friends and, try to, wake people up. I don't know. I don't even know if I'm going to bother tweeting it tonight, but there's a website that explains the whole thing to you. If you really want to know why the world is how it is and who pays for it and why so-called or self-proclaimed liberals and conservatives are at each other's throats, you can go and see where that's financed. And it's called the Center for the International Study of Global Politics. And I am going to tweet it. But you go on there, you can see all the organizations. They're split right down the fucking middle. These are the ones that are the left liberal. These are the ones that are right conservative. It's just, it's a charade. It's a charade. And until people drop those labels that, by the way, you take on yourself. That's the beauty of this scam. It's like, well, I believe that, so I'm this. And nobody can be just an American or just a human being. So, as long as people are willing, and some of these videos, that we're going to talk about, kind of point that out, and hopefully people will watch them and share them, and slowly, become aware of, what your country is, what part you play in it, and what you can do to change it in a productive way rather than, tearing at other people's ideologies, for just nobody,
One documentary, and I'd like to get your opinion if you've seen it. Have you seen Zeitgeist?
Yes, absolutely. That was one of the ones. Yeah.
I've seen. Did you see? And then they had
The addendum.
the addendum, and then with the economic terrorism.
Oh yeah. And I think John Perkins was in that. And you remember John Perkins in that, the writer?
It's been a while. If I saw him, I'm sure I would, because I've seen it.
He's on Twitter, and I'll tweet some of his handle out. And he wrote a book called Confessions of an Economic Hitman, and he's written many books after that. The guy, he was part and parcel of the in crowd. I mean, he was in one of these big, multinational concerns that basically functioned as the State Department. And they would go into these foreign countries, and they say, and he was there when several of the Latin American countries, their democratically elected leaders were taken out by the CIA, and they would go in, and he was an economic hitman, so he would go in, and he would offer them bribes, and bribe them.
Then I do know who he is. I didn't know his name, but yeah, he spent a lot of time talking, and he gave a lot of information, and that was wonderful.
Yeah, and but at any rate, Perkins, exposes the whole 9 yards. And let me see, there's all these documentaries and everything that's out there. Okay, there's information you can use. There's stuff that isn't true. There's stuff that's obviously true, and it's like with everything else. You have to have discernment. Number one.
Absolutely.
But
if you pull, when you start, if you see something and then you can, you could research it further, you can, obviously, fact check the documentary, but, there's also the eye test, what they're saying, how you feel when you see it, and a lot of these they're extremely well done. They're better than anything on television, and they're generally low budget, but I for what they are, I mean there's so much information. There's so much information out there, and Zeitgeist was a thing that it taught me about fractional banking, and I never even it just broke it down.
Yeah. Fractional reserve.
Simplistic. Yeah, that the Federal Reserve charges us interest to print our own money, and when we talk about a $20 trillion debt, that amount of money doesn't exist. There isn't 20 trillion.
That's kind of true, but we also know through people like Catherine Fitz that $43 trillion has been looted from the U.S. Treasury. So it exists in some form. It's
right.
It's real.
But the physical money does not exist.
Right.
I mean, if we gather our monetary base is less than $4 trillion. If we just gathered up all the money.
Well, that's what they do to bring on recession. They cinch up the money supply. So,
right.
and the thing, what is true, is that if you took all the debt that is there, and you apply, everybody in the United States paid off all their debts, there's not enough cash to do that in circulation.
Oh no, not remotely, because it's all based on debt. And anyone that hasn't seen Zeitgeist, it's broken down into three parts. It's one part is religion, one part is 9/11, and one part is the Federal Reserve, and that's the first first Zeitgeist. And then there are two more parts. The second part was John was saying about the economic terrorism, and
let me just finish up Perkins' story, and I'll tweet some of his stuff.
Why don't you try and explain a little bit like what economic terrorism is, and so for people that haven't seen it, and like how disgusting it is.
He called it he was an economic hitman, and he would go in basically as a surrogate of the State Department. And we'll take an example, and this really happened. It was in Panama, and it was General Torrijos that was the head of Panama, and his plan was to nationalize the Panama Canal and share the wealth with the citizens of Panama. And the powers that be in our country did not want that to happen. So they sent John Perkins in there and his team to bribe him. And he had frank conversations with Torrijos, and he just said, "I'm not going to do it. You know, that's my country, and yeah, they may kill me, but I'm not going to do it." So the next step, when the economic hitmen fail, are the real things. And General Torrijos was boarding a plane to go somewhere in Panama, and one of his trusted aides, ran up to the plane at the last minute and put something on there that nobody really knows what it was, and that plane was blown out of the sky. And that's not the first South American democratically elected leader to be killed by our CIA. So John goes into that, and he was part of it, and he totally renounced it. He went away from it. He teaches seminars. I think he lives in South America now, and is basically working to preserve the rainforest. I mean, he's just an amazing guy. But John Perkins, he's on Twitter. I think it's at Economic Hitman. But I'll post some of his stuff this week.
Yeah. But once again, the eye test, when you listen to him speak, like, he's not, it would be impossible for him to be making this stuff up. I mean, the detail that he gives, there was one story about, what was it, United Fruit?
Mm-hmm.
Is that what it was called? That eventually became like Dole, and how they, I kind of forget that story, but I
think that was our Benz in Guatemala, and he was going to do the same thing. He was going to nationalize their industry, and they were not going to have it, and he ended up getting overthrown and killed.
Yeah, but one thing that they'd like to do, whether it's the International Monetary Fund, the IMF, or
there you
the
go.
World,
there's some economic hitmen right there.
or the World Bank, and they give them these nice names, and there's suggestions that they were started by the Rothschilds, and they supposedly give loans, to developing countries that they'll never be able to pay back.
Yep.
And then when they're unable to pay them back, then they say, well, since you can't pay back the loan, we'll take your waterworks.
Yes.
And
Bechtel Corporation. In what country was that, Howie? It was
I would say Chile or Venezuela, maybe not Venezuela. It was a South American country. And then these peasant farmers and people that live below the poverty line are having to pay Bechtel Corporation to stay alive, to drink water. That's how that deal worked out. They raised the water rates like an insane amount just because they can't pay their money back to the the IMF or the World Bank, and this is the type of stuff that is out there. This isn't conspiracy. This isn't wild. I mean, this stuff actually happens, and how this can go under the radar, and people have to understand why there's animosity towards the United States. And it's not the people, it's not you and I, John, who have anything to do with this, but it's representative of us. And when people
go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, it's all right. Jump in.
There was actually a happy ending to that Bechtel story, because the entire country rioted. They said, "Fuck you, we're not paying. Get the fuck out." And they had to leave, and the people got their water back, and that's a good lesson to the people in this country. We could do the same thing if we wanted to, but if the people, if this was taught in history classes, in school,
and people understood things that we didn't, then we would understand a little bit the United States place in the world, because we're going out and like, no, we don't do that stuff. What are you talking about? Like, what are you talking? Like, that's not, oh yeah, you do.
Howie, we are making the world safe for democracy. What are you talking about?
Right. Well, yeah, and making it rich for, a very select few. And then
the elite, satanic, pedophile, billionaire class.
Well, and the corporations, and I cannot stress enough that if there's one documentary to watch, I mean, it would be, for me, it would be The Corporation, to understand, what has happened in the United States, and these corporations are, we talk about big business and Wall Street, and we want the economy to do well, but the corporations run, or along with the elite, they run the world, and a corporation has no feelings. It has no allegiance to their employees or to anything. Their the goal of a corporation is to create wealth for the shareholders. End of story. And when we constantly we support these corporations, and maybe we get something a little bit cheaper.
And John Perkins calls it predatory capitalism, and there's a simple solution. There are some companies that even do this, Howie. They have a charter, and part of their charter is ethics and responsibility, and so it can be done just as easily as you can have a corporation like Exxon or Halliburton or Bechtel, for that matter. So this can be done. We allow this in our country. That's why it happens.
Well, we've been brainwashed into doing it. I mean, in our lifetime, think about the amount of corporations that did not exist 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I remember, I remember a world without Walmarts and Targets, and there were fast food was McDonald's and Burger King and maybe a Wendy's and an occasional Roy Rogers. When you stop, I don't eat fast food, and I will get into food a little bit, because there's plenty of
that's what I want to hear you. That's what I want to hear you talk about, because it is really important. Our general health, and you can't fight this. You're not even going to be here. You're not going to be around to worry about child trafficking or corruption or anything if you're just. But yeah, talk about what they are.
I mean, doing. You know what? It's so hard. I mean, this is my entire life. Well, I would say the last 10 years. I mean, it's been my passion. I know a lot of people overweight. I know a lot of people with health problems on medicine, and I haven't. Well, aside from going to the hospital a couple months ago, I never go to a doctor. When you got your head cracked open by the Antifa guy. Yeah. Right. But I'm just saying, like, I don't get my my triglycerides checked, my cholesterol, anything like that. I mean, I haven't eaten meat for 27 years, and I'm not one to rail on, vegetarianism or anything like that. I don't even consider myself a vegetarian. I just say I don't eat meat. But, it's real topical right now because of, the healthcare debate. They keep talking about, they push this healthcare. We need healthcare. People, the children with this and children, and people won't get their medicines and all this other crap and blah, blah, blah. It's like, wait a second. I mean, first and foremost, people have to take control of their own health. But people we do not understand why we are unhealthy. The word healthy gets thrown around left and right, and up and down the supermarket aisles. but people really don't know how to eat, what to eat. And I mean, shh. Okay.
Don't curse at him, Howie.
Yeah. Well, yeah. You look at but one documentary. Yeah. One documentary that I absolutely love.
And I have seen it, and I love it too.
Oh no, I'm actually throwing a different one at you. It's called the Men Who Made Us Fat. And,
that one I haven't seen. I thought you were talking about Food Incorporated.
Well, Food Incorporated is great, and but the documentary, The Men Who Made Us Fat, it basically breaks down the argument: what makes us fat, fatty foods or sugar? And I'm here to tell you, and I rail on this all the time. Sugar is the thing that is doing this. And there was a British doctor back in the 60s, and he was the one who was the big push that fatty foods were making people fat. And you need X amount of fat in your diet, as long as it's good, healthy fat. But the sugar is the thing that is really, really doing it to us. And the statistics.
I'll just quickly interject. But my great aunt, little Scottish lady, I mean, she avoided sugar, but she ate what would be classed nowadays as the worst high-fat diet you could ever imagine. Well, she lived to be 99.
Right.
And she was, the woman would walk to church, over this, probably 3 miles over this big bridge, So sugar, bad. Sugar bad.
Well, my best argument for this is obesity in children. And, children, they can't eat that much, like their stomachs are only so big. But what they can do is drink all day long. And the more you drink, whether it's soda, whether it's sports drinks, juice boxes, which are 10% juice, and it's all day long. And I have friends with children, and I watch this, and they are just ingesting insane amounts of sugar. And if there's anybody who's listening, I'm going to give a little lesson on sugar, because when it's right on the label. All you have to do is flip over the bottle of whatever you're drinking, and it'll tell you how much sugar. Unfortunately, it's listed in grams. And I think it was 1990 was the act that the labeling act that they had to list sodium and sugar and calories and a few other things. So the companies were forced by law to label their sugar, and they said, all right, we'll label our sugar, but we're going to do it in grams. And of course, nobody knows what that means. So when you flip over a can of soda and it says that there's 43 or 36 grams of sugar in it, okay, there's 36 grams of sugar. I don't know what the fuck that means. It's 36 grams.
That's 36,000 milligrams. Maybe that'll help people.
Yeah, the sodium's done in milligrams. But we can do it, because with a simple Google search, you can find out that roughly 4.2 grams equals a teaspoon. And now you can start doing the math on that. So when you're taking a sugary beverage with approximately 40 grams of sugar, and they all, in a 12 ounce, and they all have about 40 grams of sugar in them.
Well, you've seen, I think that video's on YouTube. They take a glass of water, and there's a glass of next to it, and they put the equivalent of, and you can see him putting it in with spoons. Okay, and it's like, it makes you sick just looking at it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. But I mean, you're ingesting the equivalent of 10 teaspoons of sugar in one beverage. Now, would you sit down and, go into the sugar bowl if they still have those things? And, of course you wouldn't just sit there and eat 10 teaspoons of sugar, but that's what people are actually doing. And if you have a couple sodas and if you go into getting a 44 ounce, big super triple, big gulp, that's more sugar than I would ingest probably in a week, if not a month. I don't know.
Yeah, and one little point I want to make about that too, the sugar you're talking about.
Oh yeah, well,
it's
but
not sugar. It's high fructose corn syrup, which is made with GMO corn. So if say you picked an ear of GMO corn and it's distorting your DNA from eating it, mm-hmm. Take that like 1 million times and concentrate it, and that's what you're getting. And not only in soda. Anything that's sweet, you better avoid high fructose corn syrup, please. That was a PSA from me.
That's cool. And in the documentary, it was a two-parter, and it was done by the BBC, The Men Who Made Us Fat. They actually talked about the history of corn back in when Nixon was going for re-election in 1972. People they said that the Vietnam War was like the main issue, but actually food prices were rising pretty rapidly back then, and the Republicans were really concerned that white middle and lower class housewives were not going to vote for him, so Nixon got nominated and put this guy at the head of the USDA, and he was from Indiana, and his solution to lowering food prices was this proliferation of corn in our diets. And that's really what got started, and that's what was bringing down the food prices. And if you look on labels, whether either corn or soy, both heavily GMO'd, they're going to be in 80% of the food one way or another. And that is what is causing this obesity. And it's an absolute epidemic. I mean, they say
juvenile diabetes. I mean, it's out of control. Big secret. But it's out of control.
Yeah. And, basically, and, I hate to say in these terms, but people they have to change their diets drastically. And, and it's very difficult at first because, sugar is, it's a straight up addiction. Mm-hmm. And, and you sort of have to wean yourself off. I would say if people have Tiffany, who I'm very good friends with, and we've done some things together. She was out in Pittsburgh, they call it pop. I call it soda.
Chicago,
but she had probably drinking, I forget how much she said, maybe close to a case of soda a week. And, and you don't realize it, but to get yourself off of that, I would say, like, if it's hard to go cold turkey, what somebody can do is actually cut the soda with like club soda or seltzer water. So you're still getting the carbonation, and it's like half soda. So now you're getting half the sugar, and you're still getting it, and slowly weaning yourself down and off of it. And I'm telling you, once you get away from the, and particularly the high fructose corn syrup, which is in everything, ketchup, anything sweet, Heinz has it in everything. So when you're buying ketchups and, whatever product, please look for things that actually have like real sugar. Sugar's not bad.
No,
No,
and there is organic raw sugar that,
yeah, sure.
that isn't going to kill you. You know, of course. I mean, if you eat a whole bag of it, it's still you're gonna be a diabetic at some point. But you don't do that. Once what I found, and believe me, it was, you know, it was not easy, like you're saying. But once you start paying attention to what you're eating and start making these small changes and keep them going, you don't crave the sugar like you used to. You
Oh no,
don't.
you'll get God.
Water, and
Yeah.
I'm so. I mean, we are like totally blessed, you know, where we live, because. And everybody, when we were going to get this house, everybody's like, "Oh, what do you want? It's got a spring, you know. You want to be like, I don't want city water. Our water comes out of the sky, you know, and yeah, I know there's some stuff in the sky these days, but it goes down through the ground. It's filtered, you know, with rocks and the soil and everything else, and it flows out of this spring, you know. And there's some maintenance involved, but man, I drink that shit like it's going like it's going out of style. And it's water. I never used to drink water. I mean, water, really, you know. But once you get used to it,
and you regain that appreciation for it. I mean, you crave water. I mean, I oh my God, I just love it. And I hear so many people that say, "Oh, I don't like the taste of it." It's like, what do you mean you don't like the taste of water? Like, what are you talking about? And what I would love to do is take everyone out to take the whole world out to a desert, you know, for 3 days, you know, to get them to the point where they're literally dying of thirst, and then put a soda and a water in front of them and see which one they grab for, and then everyone will definitely grab for the water, because then your natural instincts will take over. Usually, I'm a lot more fired. I'm a little tired tonight. I mean, I'm a lot more fired up about this, but I mean, what we are doing to ourselves, you know, and this is the healthcare thing. This is, I mean, we could solve healthcare by taking care of our own health. Then we wouldn't have to spend this much money. We wouldn't need the drugs, the cholesterol, and whatever people are taking. It's just absolutely. And
you can't even, you know, I can't get my mind around this, but I've had to. But it's a cradle to grave plan that these scumbags have with bad food, vaccines. Okay, pollute your water, pollute your air, give you shitty food to eat, and then have a pharmaceutical industry that has designed drugs to take care of these ailments that you're going to get. But, you know, they don't really take care of them. They just really kind of allow you to live till you get to around 60 years old and you're getting ready to retire, and then you die. You know, and that's the plan. They don't want you collecting your Social Security. They don't want you living to we are useless eaters. You know, that's what they term us as. And it's a cradle to grave scam. And if people and take what
they're falling for it.
Happen to responsibility, you know, for yourself. You know,
but you have to
rely.
Well, let me tell you something. You got to be real careful about, you know, saying these things, because just like in the 50s and 60s, when the cigarette companies were fighting tooth and nail to say, oh, there's no proof of, you know, cigarettes are harmful.
Doctors smoke Camels, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right. And you know, the soda companies and the fast food companies, they'll say, oh, there's no empirical evidence of it. And it's like, you know, okay, whatever, dude.
Yeah, because they fund the studies or not fund the studies.
I know. Yeah. I mean, listen, here's the statistic that, you know, three quarters of the American population will likely be overweight or obese by 2020. 3/4 of the population. Wow. And people cannot, I mean, and it's almost like normal. It's almost like normal when it's to the point of if you see a skinny person, they stand out, you know, or somebody that's, you know, to be chubby, overweight, whatever you want to call it, but it is taxing the healthcare system to the point, and you know, and they're making money.
I gotta mention this. Have you seen My 600-Pound Life. Have you ever seen any of that
Yes.
show?
Yeah.
Did you see the Asante guy, Stephen Asante?
No.
Oh my
I
God!
mean, I've seen the show. None I would remember.
You gotta find that episode. I mean, it's they should make it required watching in preschools. Because it's like a perfect illustration of what's wrong in every way with our society and how it is killing people and how the lack of responsibility is just out of control. And they're trying to help this guy, and he's been so conditioned and brainwashed and just ruined, by the society, that he's fighting them every step of the way. And I mean, you just want to scream just watching the thing, and you feel bad for the guy because obviously his life is out of control, but I mean, it's just unbelievable. It's horrible, but yeah.
Yeah. One of my least favorite endeavors is going to a supermarket, because I will watch people. I mean, I'll watch what they're stuffing into their carts, and I mean, it's just absolutely mind-boggling to me. Now, I do a lot of shopping at produce stands, just because it's exponentially cheaper. Yeah, and when you go to these places in Philadelphia, most of the people shopping there are not Americans. They're foreigners.
Did you know anything in a Mexican store is non-GMO, including Coca-Cola?
I did not.
Here's a question for you, and go when you see a Mexican little tienda store, go in there and buy a Coke and look at it and look at what's in the Coke. It's not.
It's real sugar?
It's cane sugar. Yeah.
Cane sugar.
Why is that? Okay. Why do you suppose that is?
Maybe we should ask Coke, or maybe we should ask Coke and Pepsi, and Dr. Pepper.
I think it's because the Mexican government, and this is the reason, and many other governments have said, no, we're not going to allow you to sell that stuff to our citizens. We're just not going to allow it. Now, I'm not saying they don't have other corruption problems and every other problem, but a lot of countries in Europe and even Canada, have said, GMOs, they're out. We're not going to use them. We're not going to do this. So yeah, and there's so many alternatives and solutions, and you just have to do your homework. Even in the inner city, these co-ops, there's co-ops that bring fresh, basically organic produce into the urban areas. You can do that. You can grow your own freaking shit. Even in a if you've got a small patio, you wouldn't believe what you can grow in a 5-gallon bucket. That sounds stupid, but you can do it. And if you're serious about your health, you will. That's.
It's particularly painful for me to watch obese children, or overweight children, because they have no idea I consider it almost like a form of child abuse. When you see a child when they can't play, and it could lead to bullying. It just could lead to tons of problems. And you're sending the kids off to school with these whether it's sugary cereals, and then the beverages, and then they're hyper in class. Well, of course they're going to be hyper if they got all this crap pumped through them. Then they're going to be labeled ADHD, and then they're going to be put on medicine, and then they're going to be. It's just this whole thing that's just completely, utterly, fucking unnecessary, because people can't read a label. So I want to say this one more time. 4.2 grams of sugar equals 1 teaspoon. And this is a simple Google search. Find out how many grams of sugar in whatever you're eating. And of course, it's not sugar, but the equivalent of sugar. Divide it by 4.2, and then you'll come out with your teaspoon number. And every time you eat drinking something, eating something, you'll know exactly how many teaspoons of sugar you're ingesting into your body. And then when you start realizing that when you're drinking a couple sodas a day and, a juice, and then you're putting all these additives and the cereals and everything else, you're going to realize that you're putting about 30 teaspoons of sugar into your body every single day, maybe more. Maybe more. 30 teaspoons.
Another good way to think about it. You know what an aspirin looks like, right, Howie?
Yeah.
That's 325 milligrams. Your average aspirin.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that 42 grams of sugar is 42,000 milligrams of sugar. So look at the aspirin. That's 325. Then put out your other hand and imagine, what is that, 100 aspirins or more? Well, so that's
I know. The numbers are staggering, and it comes down to that. With the information being so readily available on the internet, and what people are doing with the internet, whether it's no matter what it is, to understand a little bit about the Federal Reserve, or what when people have been murdered, or what the CIA does, but we're talking about our own basic health, and people can't. They've done a great job. They've done a great job of dumbing the population down.
Yep, and you can't. We're not going to stop child trafficking tomorrow. We're not going to change the economic structure of the world tomorrow. But you know what? You can change your diet. There's so many little things that, and somebody way smarter than me said, you can change the world one person at a time, and that's you. And if you make these changes, and that's where you got to start.
Yeah.
The rest of the stuff, hopefully we'll get it accomplished. But if you keep eating, like the crap that they're being served to you, you won't be around. Or you'll be.
You'll be around. No, you'll be around. You'll be around. They'll keep you alive. They'll pump you full of medicine on the back end too.
Yeah.
We're talking about. Listen. I'm talking about quality of life.
Yeah. Yeah, you'll be in no real shape to think,
right.
to have energy, to have any of the things that
right.
are required to, live in this
right.
very challenging world.
And for the people that want to, fight the battles that we want to fight, you need to be. You need to be physically strong. You need to be mentally strong. You need to be on top. It takes a lot of energy. And when you fuel your body properly, I'm a big believer in the symbiotic relationship between the body and the mind. If your mind is doing well, then your body can do well. And if your body's doing well, then your mind will be better. This food, it causes depression. It causes a myriad of problems, and I see it every day, and I'm telling you, the corporations, they just love it. They know what's happening. They know what they're doing to people. They know exactly what's going on, but it makes them money, and they do not care. So
they absolutely don't. And they won't. They won't change until we make them. But did you notice that Walmart is now carrying a lot of organic products? They don't, believe me.
People are waking up. People are waking up.
Yeah, there is there's some sinister stuff going on. But the bottom line with these assholes is they're going to sell whatever you buy, or whatever you want to buy.
Sure.
And
sure.
if you don't buy the rest of the shit in that store, and you buy all the organic stuff, they're going to stock more of it. They're going to provide it. It's the profit motive. So we can change these corporations. Oh God, we can't do anything about Walmart. Bullshit. The power of the wallet, is much more mighty than the gun.
It's been going on for months. So I made a promise to somebody. I have to. I'm a big believer in doing shakes, like protein shakes, and
Yes.
I have one down that there's about 12 ingredients. I'm going to do a Periscope. I'm going to put it out. It's a great way to start your day, and it tastes really good, and it basically gives you everything that you need up until lunch. So I'm going to be doing that just for anybody that wants to maybe improve their health a little bit, and I guarantee you'll see the benefits from it.
I will look forward to. I'll compare it to my protein shake.
Okay, absolutely. Does yours include spinach?
At times when I can get it, but I'm.
Oh, okay.
We'll
do a little.
We'll keep those details under wraps until.
Oh, okay.
Periscope,
But
hey, it's great, and I try to, I have to exercise because with my health problems, if I don't exercise, I was basically bedridden 8 months ago, so that's what happens when I don't exercise. So I have to, and a protein shake in the morning.
Even when you're not feeling well, you gotta move. You gotta keep moving.
Yep, and the body needs that protein regardless.
Oh, protein, good quality protein, and good fats.
We will have your Periscope on the Traffic Report Twitter line. So let's recap real quick because we're about running out of time. Food Incorporated. What was the other?
The men who made us fat.
Who made us fat? Okay, we talked about the corporation. Go into the show notes from last week. They're going to be the same links in there this week. Just my own plugs, along the child trafficking, the Kinsey pedophiles, an open secret, Hollywood pedophiles, and I want to. This is a correction from last week because I guess I was just, I had an aneurysm or something, and I want you to go and subscribe to Missy's channel. It's called Running from Chaos. I think I said Running on Chaos. It was like a Freudian slip because I've been doing that all week. But Missy's YouTube channel, Running from Chaos, and she has a lot of common sense breakdown of all the child trafficking issues. Just incredible. So please go to that channel, check out these documentaries, and educate yourself, your children, your friends, your family, your coworkers, for God's sake.
It's real simple, and a lot of them are very well done, and they're a very easy watch. I thought the music was. I thought we were running out of time. I don't know. It's got to be coming any second.
We either crash short of the runway or overrun it. What are you gonna do?
Well.
There we go.
I knew it was.
Thanks, Howie. Thanks, everybody.
I hope everyone have a great weekend.
See you on Tuesday.